Hi, everybody. It's Katie with Grandma's House on the Mountain Facebook page and the Real Messy Gardener YouTube page. Welcome, guys. Today I want to talk about how did your garden grow? Let's take stock of our gardens, what we did this year in our gardening efforts. Let's talk about the pros and cons of your year. Think about it. Sit down. If you're not already taking notes when you garden throughout the season, I would highly suggest you at least attempt to try making a few little hen scratchings about each thing you plant. It'll make your life a lot easier next season and the seasons beyond. So you want to look at what did you do good? What did you enjoy the most about your garden? What made you feel the best? What did you go, yeah, I finally got that to grow, or I finally got that darn weed out of there, or I finally nipped those aphids off my roses. Yay! That's the kind of stuff you want to keep track of. Okay, so you got rid of those aphids off your roses. How did you do that? Write it down. Did you use ladybugs and white flies and what's the other one? Praying mantis? You know, I would highly suggest you order from the companies when you can in the early spring, late February, early March. Get yourself some ladybugs and some other, what I call organic pest control. Praying mantis is another one. Oh, they're awesome. They're really good. So let them loose. So, is that what you use to make those aphids off your roses go away? If that's not what you use, what'd you use? Okay. Now let's look not only at your gardening triumphs, but let's look at your gardening experiments, I like to call them. They're not really mistakes. They're a con, a learning experience that you learned not to do it that way next time. So what were some of those things? Did you plant a certain type of, vegetable in the wrong spot? Did it not get enough sun, or was it too much sun for something you planted? Did it get enough water, or did something happened where your irrigation system or your lawn sprinklers stopped working? While the week you were gone in vacation. That stuff always happens. Trust me, it always happens somewhere along the line. So you want to look at that. You also want to look at, towards the end of the year, what would you do different about the placement in your garden? Would you move your whole garden? Would you start another one? Maybe for shade vegetables like your asparagus, your peas, your broccoli, so you can grow them longer throughout the season if it's a shade cooler area. Are you gonna start a new plot of, let's say, gooseberries? So you want to start gooseberries next year? Okay, write that down. And then I would go and look up when the good perfect date for ordering those gooseberries are, so you can have it written on your calendar or in your reminders to contact www.goodberries.com. And I don't know if that's real, so please, that's just me pulling stuff out of my hat. But you know what I mean. You go to some online farm, or you go down the street or down into another town to a famous nursery or whatever, and you pick up your gooseberries because it's the optimum time to plant them. Why? Because you made a plan. Same thing with especially fruit, in trees. I always say the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. And it's kind of true, especially if you want fruit from it. Having said that, you can, of course, by all means, get yourself a fruit tree. Plant one. Let me give you a piece of advice. It's going to want to start popping fruit out about 3 years. Pluck it. Don't let it bear fruit for the first minimum 5 years. I'd say 7 if you can. Depends. If you buy, a new tree that, is maybe 4 foot tall, 5 foot tall. It's not old enough to bear fruit yet. So, but, let's say, hey, I want to do that cherry tree. Okay. Now, talking about cherries, not every cherry tree will pollinate another cherry tree. There are certain types, like Bing cherries, will not pollinate anybody. But a lot of things can pollinate Bing cherries and the like. And it goes on. Queen Anne cherries, Rainier cherries, all these different types of cherries, tart cherries, pie cherries. Make sure you do your research when you're doing the cherries or fruit that has to have a pollinator with it, unless you know your neighbor has a different type of cherry tree that'll work. But you always want to make sure if it needs a pollinator partner with it, if it can be the same, a Queen Anne with a Queen Anne. No, you have to look that up. Maybe one day I'll make a quick little video on that, on the different types of cherry trees that pollinate each other. But that's the kind of things that the plan is for, why you look forward, at the end of your season. And even throughout your season, pay attention to, your small weather patterns. Like you realize, hey, that plant doesn't do so good over there because it's all sun and it needs a little bit more shade. It can't quite handle let's say you're in Alabama, can't quite handle the sun and the humidity in Alabama. Okay, would you let it have sun in the morning, and by the time the afternoon comes, you have it in afternoon shade? That plant will love you forever. Gets just enough of that heat and that sun that it'll be happy. But it won't be be overkill. If you leave it alone, it either struggle for its entire life, you'll never get anything out of it, or it'll just die and you wasted your money and your time. So, I'm all about saving money. Don't you be wasting no money now. All right, so that's kind of what you do when you're doing, your planning towards the end of the year. How did my garden grow? What would I like to change? What would I like to add? Is there anything you'd like to make different? I think I'm going to move my compost pile over here instead of over there. It's a little bit easier for me to get to. I'm going to put my flowers over here to, let's build a little trellis and have clematis grow up where we store our garbage cans so the people in the road only see the clematis growing instead of the trash cans. Stuff like that. That's what the planning is all about. So you can go, okay, well, let's get a trellis up here and a climbing rose bush for Mom, and then we're going to try to get some apple trees in next year. And I know, you know what? Let's try to get some of those Shasta daisies to grow over there in the corner. They'll look great. You write it down. Write it down. And it's all tied into what I call the gardener's best tool in their toolbox, and that is your observation, your ability to observe and notice and keep track of things. If you're out in your garden, you will know if your plant's not doing good. If you look at your plant every day, you'll know when there's a difference. Just like when you have kids. You see them every day, but you'll know when they're off and they're not feeling good, right? Same thing with the plant. Just use your observation. Okay? So let's go over real quick. Mine, I dealt with a lot of seed death this year. I had a lot of older seeds that didn't thrive. They might have germinated, might have popped up a few little leaves, sickly leaves, and then just, if they even did that. I have a lot of mystery plants, which I'm known for. I get things and I label them. I try to be meticulous as possible of paying attention to what is what. And I still end up with mystery seeds. Still end up with mystery plants. I know it's a squash. I know it's a summer squash. More than likely, it is one of my organic yellow squashes or a zucchini. Okay, that's a pretty easy. But I have a lot of winter squashes. I have acorn. I have is it butterball? Butterball. It's stuff like that, and I can't even remember all of them. Some of them I planted, and I know they're unique squash, but I can't remember which plant was what. And yeah, I probably could find out if I really wanted to by the process of elimination, because I know what seeds I had, but it was just not the best season for me. I got a late start because of a lot of that early problem with the thriving of the plants. The seeds get old. They have a shelf life. Some are very short. Some are very long. Most about 4 years. I'd say about 4 years if they're treated correctly. Now, that's not every one. The best thing to do is do your homework and look it up. They'll usually have it. Anyways, so yeah, that's kind of all mine did come up. Most of mine are on the deck in pots. I had every intention of putting them in the dirt, but we were without lawnmowers, plural, because we actually need a riding one, but Yeah, our push one's dead, and we had no weed whacker, and we're sitting here going, oh my God, I got 3/4 of an acre that looks like a hayfield. I was able to get some of the weeds back enough to dig a couple holes in, but that was about where my enthusiasm stopped. I watered it, but it didn't thrive. The ones up on the deck, I should have known better. I should have left them on the deck too, but I was trying to be a good gardener and getting in the dirt, right? Whatever. See, even us gardeners have been doing it for so long, still have bad gardening days. Actually, I don't count it as bad because I got some flowers. I got my mom's plants. When my mom passed away a year and a half ago, when I was there, I deadheaded all of her flowers and got a bunch of seeds. So I have a bunch of those coming up from her yard. So that's kind of special. So that was the positive. I got those going, coming up pretty good. Negative was dealing with a lot of dead seeds. Certain things out of my control, like not having the proper equipment right now to be able to do that. So it is what it is, and you just kind of learn from my learning process is, try even better to be of remembering what plant was what when I stuck it in the ground, because I usually don't know until it grows. I have mystery seeds. Hey, it's growing. I'm happy, right? All right, the other thing I would probably do is I need to really work on my soil in the front. Even though I typically have good soil because it was a grazing field for cows. It was a apple orchard for a little while. My house was built in 1976, so this town is old. So. Because I got good dirt, because we have deer, we have elk, walking through, leaving their droppings, and then of course I let my chickens out. Although they're getting older, they don't really want to go out that much anymore. But I get the chickens to go out there, and they do their fertilizing. When we do have our lawnmower, we don't bag our grass clippings. We have a mulching blade, and it just lays the mulch, the cut grass right back down. So our turf is, really good. I just need to build it up where I can get rid of and be a little bit more control of the weeds, and thereby also making the dirt a little bit more fluffier for me to get into as I get older. It sneaks up on you. Those achy bones, they sneak up on you. So, yeah, I've been, I do like my vegetable garden, but I'm really wanting to focus more on foundation plants and perennials for my front yard, making it more pretty, more flowers, more daisies, more, yeah. I love my vegetables, don't get me wrong. I should put it this way, there's not a plant I don't like to grow. Some more than others. But, yeah, so I'm kind of thinking about that. I'll still probably do a little bit here and there of vegetables, but I really want to start focusing as far as my personal planting is, maybe some fruit bushes, some fruit trees, and then the rest is, perennials, maybe some more lilacs, some more irises, things like that. That's kind of what I'm looking at right now. And then, depending on how circumstances go in a life and how God blesses us, we'll decide on where we go after that. But I do have the big 10-year plan, and what I'm going to do, and may not necessarily be lined up in a particular, year 2026, I'm going to do this. Yeah, maybe not. But, it all depends, because we don't know what life's going to throw at us. Okay? We never know. We make all the plans in the world, but God's plans are God's plans are the best. He's sovereign. He knows what's the best for us. He knows what's going on. So we try to stick with him and follow his way and, trust him and just go on with life, living for Christ and, planting my garden, just having a good old time. And I think that's what it's all about. I play with my grandchildren. I hang out with my adult children. I have my animals and, my plants. I have some friends that I hang around with. I'm pretty much a homebody. I like to stay home and run around chasing my chicken who's decided to come over here. What are you doing, George? He came over like, crazy. He was going to beat up somebody over here. What's going on, baby? What's going on? But Anyway, so yeah, that's kind of where we are, but I really encourage you to take a walk out in the evening. You don't have to do it all in one day. Just take this time, just think, what kind of vegetables would I want to do next year? Or like I have a pond, I would love to put a bunch of flowers, but they have to be more shade, because there's a lot of trees around my pond. I'd like to put some more things like that. Like I'd like to get more bulbs, and things. But, we do what we can. But yes, I really encourage you to walk around, keep track of what you're thinking you might want to do, even if you change your mind later, or even sketch it out on a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be perfect. I think some of you have seen my hand scratching when I plan my rose gardens and stuff. Now, when you plan it, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to turn out that way. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to start the way you planned it, but that's just the starting, just the idea. We start with the idea and fill in later. All right, guys. For right now, I'm going to let you go and go out and take a walk in your garden. Take a look at it. Take a look at your yard. Think about what kind of things you'd like to do, make better, or not do again. Okay? All right, guys. Keep gardening and be blessed. Thank you so much. Have a good day.